In December of 2023 in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, an altercation was captured on dashcam footage involving off-duty Meridian Police Department Corporal Alan Ganta, 57 at the time, and 37-year-old driver Thomas Brocculio. The incident began when Brocculio, accompanied by his dog, honked at Ganta for not turning at a red light where a right turn was permitted. The situation escalated when Ganta, dressed in casual attire, confronted Brocculio, waving his badge and threatening to issue a ticket over the honking. The exchange heated as Brocculio questioned Ganta's attention to the road, suggesting he was distracted by his phone. A claim Ganta refuted by saying he was merely moving something in his bag. As tensions rose, Ganta threatened further action for the honking and, upon being asked for his badge number, reached into Brocculio's vehicle and punched him, causing visible injury. Brocculio, claiming to be dazed and potentially concussed, reported the assault to 911, leading to police documentation of his injuries. When approached by police at his home, Ganta initially questioned the accusation but eventually admitted to the assault during his statement. Meriden police conducted an internal affairs investigation concluding that Ganta had violated departmental conduct rules. As a consequence, Ganta, who served as a school resource officer, SRO, at Thomas Edison Middle School, faced charges of breach of peace and third-degree assault. He was removed from his SRO assignment, suspended for 5 days without pay, and mandated to undergo de-escalation training for 3 years. Number 7. Lacy Fields. On May the 6th of 2018, 23-year-old Alexandria Police Department officer Lacy Fields, who was off duty at the time, was involved in a physical altercation at an IHOP on MacArthur Drive in Alexandria, Louisiana. Fields and another unnamed female got into a fight inside of the restaurant. The disturbance attracted the attention of a uniformed officer working security at the restaurant. Attempting to resolve the conflict, the security officer intervened by ordering the women to go outside. Despite initially successfully separating them outside, the women eventually kicked it off again as he was trying to write up a report. When the officer on the scene attempted to break things up a second time, he was now battered by Fields. He tried to subdue her, but Fields continued to resist before eventually getting handcuffed. Both women received misdemeanor citations at the scene. Fields for battery on a police officer and the other woman for simple battery. It was determined that the initial fight had not been started by Fields. The arresting officer later sought medical attention for injuries sustained during the altercation. Following an investigation, Fields was arrested on May 22nd without incident on charges of felony battery on a police officer and resisting an officer with force, leading to her booking at the Rapides Parish Detention Center. It was unclear if she was fired or if she managed to hang on to her job as a police officer. Number 6. Michael Seth Perau. In a case that captivated Putnam County, Georgia, Michael Seth Perau, a 45-year-old officer of the Eatonton Police Department, was convicted in February 2022 for the murder of his wife, Amanda Perau, on February 3, 2020. The tragic incident unfolded at the family's Lake Oconee home, leading to Perau facing charges of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, and simple battery. The case's complexity was heightened by the events leading up to the fatal shooting. Just days before Amanda's death, Perau was subjected to a restraining order due to a domestic incident on January 28, which Amanda later requested to be vacated. The couple's tumultuous relationship, marred by previous domestic abuse charges against Perau, set a grim backdrop to the investigation. On the day of the murder, Perau reported Amanda's death as probably having been the result of a mental breakdown to his former boss, Chief Kent Lawrence, before contacting emergency services. This claim became a central point of contention during the trial. Sheriff Howard R. Sills of Putnam County played a crucial role in unraveling the claims made by Michael Perau. Skepticism arose quickly regarding the narrative of Amanda Perau's death having been caused by her suffering from a mental breakdown. During a voluntary questioning session at the police station, Michael Perau's evasive answers only deepened suspicions. This skepticism was further substantiated during a preliminary hearing where Sheriff Sills critically examined the circumstances of Amanda's death. His observations concerning the positioning of Amanda's body, the location of the firearm and its magazine, and the blood patterns at the scene strongly contradicted Michael Perau's account, leading to the conclusion that the scene had been tampered with. A verdict was handed down after a detailed investigation and trial, overseen by Okmulgee Judicial Circuit Superior Court Chief Judge Brenda H. Trammell, who sentenced Perau to life in prison without the possibility of parole, specifically for the malice murder charge. Number 5. Patrick Hemingway. Patrick Hemingway, a 37-year-old former Glastonbury police officer, has come under significant legal scrutiny following his alleged involvement in a series of commercial burglaries spanning 3 states: Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Hemingway, whose law enforcement career began in 2009 with the New Britain Police Department before transitioning to the Glastonbury Police Department in 2019, resigned from his position on September 1st, 2023. This resignation occurred amidst growing investigations into his activities, which have since led to multiple charges and arrests related to a spate of burglaries and computer crimes committed from February 2023 onward. Hemingway's arrest in November prompted the Glastonbury police to acknowledge the situation publicly, expressing a combination of embarrassment and anger at the betrayal of public trust by one of their own. The investigation into Hemingway's activities revealed his suspected involvement in more than 40 commercial burglaries, with significant incidents reported in Stratford, Wethersfield, Old Saybrook, and East Hampton. These incidents included the theft of substantial amounts of cash and property, notably a $76,000 haul from Lucky Lou's Bar and Grill in Wethersfield and a cash register from Loco Perro restaurant in East Hampton. In Stratford, Hemingway was charged with burglary, larceny, and criminal mischief in connection with a break-in at Biagio Osteria, where he was suspected of stealing $500 in cash and causing $150 worth of damage. Surveillance efforts and subsequent investigations exposed Hemingway's evolving tactics to evade law enforcement detection, including altering vehicle license plates. Hemingway faces extensive charges, including more than 70 counts of third-degree computer crime and more than 25 counts of making false statements, spanning from 2019 to 2023, with Hemingway held in lieu of over $1 million bail for the computer crime case and additional bails totaling more than $100,000 across 6 other cases. He remains in custody of the State Department of Correction and is subject to decertification proceedings to prevent him from serving as a police officer in the future. Number 4. Jason McIntosh. In December of 2019, Jason McIntosh, a 46-year-old former Alabama police officer from Birmingham, committed a tragic act of violence, taking the life of his 31-year-old estranged wife, Megan Montgomery. The event occurred just 16 days after McIntosh had been reissued his personal firearm by the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, ALEA, despite having an active restraining order against him due to a previous instance of domestic violence. The incident unfolded after McIntosh forcibly removed Montgomery from an oyster bar in Mountain Brook, Alabama, in view of her friends, subsequently driving her to a parking lot where he beat and fatally shot her. The couple had married on February 2nd, 2018, but separated a year later on February 23rd, 2019. The same day McIntosh, then an officer with the Hoover Police Department, shot Montgomery in the arm during a domestic dispute. McIntosh resigned from the police department following the incident and was placed under a restraining order while the ALEA confiscated his pistol. Despite this and Alabama's law prohibiting individuals under domestic abuse restraining orders from possessing firearms, the ALEA returned McIntosh's gun to him 9 months later, a decision criticized by both Montgomery's mother and McIntosh's attorney as dangerously illogical. Montgomery, a marketing professional, had shared her experiences of abuse online and was actively seeking a divorce at the time of her death. Her contributions to social media and volunteer work reflected her dedication to raising awareness about domestic abuse. Following the murder, McIntosh pleaded guilty to murder, leading to a 30-year prison sentence, avoiding a potential capital murder conviction, which could have resulted in the death penalty. Number 3. Gina Mestre. In 2023, 33-year-old former NYPD officer Gina Mestre found herself embroiled in legal turmoil, facing racketeering charges for her alleged involvement with the Shooting Boys gang led by her boyfriend, 24-year-old Andrew Caballo Dunn. Their relationship began in the summer of 2020 while Mestre was stationed at the 52nd Precinct in the Bronx, an area plagued by the gang's criminal activities including murder, drug trafficking, and violent assaults. Mestre's entanglement with Dunn and the gang led her down a path of corruption, including aiding Dunn in avoiding capture for a murder he committed in November 2020, caught on surveillance footage. Mestre, who was part of the investigative team, compromised the operation by alerting Dunn to his hot status, allowing him to flee to the Dominican Republic. Additionally, she notified the gang of the informants that were embedded within their group, which led to violent assaults and tipped off gang members about an impending grand jury indictment, enabling them to conceal their criminal activities. Her actions remained under the radar until March of 2022, when her association with the gang came to light, following the arrests of several gang members. Subsequently, Mestre was discharged from the NYPD and charged with offenses that could result in a 60-year prison sentence. U.S. Attorney Damian Williams condemned Mestre's betrayal of her oath to protect the public and her fellow officers, highlighting her role in obstructing federal investigations and aiding criminal activities within her precinct. Meanwhile, Dunn was apprehended in the Dominican Republic and extradited to the U.S., where he was convicted of murder and sentenced to 35 years in prison in February of 2023. Mestre, who has pleaded not guilty to the charges, was released on a $250,000 personal recognizance bond, awaiting trial for her alleged crimes that starkly contrast the duties and ethics expected of law enforcement officials. Today's topic was requested by Ben Weber 248 and Daniel Veloz 3633. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Vaughn Cannon. In a tragic incident in Oklahoma City on August 30th of 2023, 41-year-old Cleveland County Deputy Vaughn Cannon was arrested following the fatal shooting of his wife, 40-year-old Deputy Jordan Cannon, who herself was a serving police officer. The distressing event unfolded at around 2 a.m. at their home on Brookstone Lake Drive, prompting police intervention due to reports of a domestic disturbance. Upon arrival, officers encountered a heart-wrenching scene captured on body cam footage, showing Vaughn Cannon in a state of hysteria crawling from the bedroom where his wife lay dead. As officers engaged with Vaughn trying to ascertain the situation and ensure their own safety, the footage revealed the gravity of the situation. Vaughn, in his distress, was heard desperately calling for his uncle on the phone. This dramatic episode, involving a victim, suspect, and arresting officers, all of the same police department, was later released to the public. The loss of Jordan, described as a vibrant and dedicated officer, deeply affected her family, including her 17-year-old child and 2 stepchildren, as well as her colleagues and the broader community. She had filed for divorce from Vaughn, but reneged on her decision months later. The devastating event led to Vaughn Cannon's arrest and charge of first-degree murder. At the time of this writing, he has since pleaded not guilty to the charge, and his trial date is set for May 6th, 2024. Straight after number 1, we will line up our previously released episode about when veterinarians go wrong. stick around after number 1 if you haven't seen that one yet. If you have, then I'll see you again tomorrow. Number 1. Karina Salgado. On Halloween night in 2019, Chicago police officer Karina Salgado, aged 30, found herself in trouble after a series of events while off duty. Dressed in clown makeup reminiscent of Pennywise from Stephen King's It, Salgado, who had joined the Chicago police force in 2017, was ejected from Charlie's, a Western-themed bar in the city, for being too intoxicated. She then attempted to re-enter despite being told she was unwelcome. Police were called and things escalated around 1 a.m. when Salgado ignored officers at the scene who had reiterated that she could not enter the nightclub. After unsuccessfully trying to bypass an officer to make a third entry attempt, she allegedly struck that officer in the face, leading to her arrest on misdemeanor charges of resisting police, battery, and criminal trespassing. Following her arrest, Salgado, a member of the Mass Transit Unit, was placed on desk duty pending an internal investigation. The episode attracted commentary, including nicknames like Bozo the Clown and Penny Not So Wise, highlighting the unusual circumstances of her arrest. In a video posted to TikTok, a veterinarian was captured performing an illegal surgical procedure on a pregnant French bulldog in February of 2021. After the footage was shared online, the vet and the animal's owner were both taken into custody by authorities in Central Florida. An arrest report indicated that the dog's owner, 50-year-old Larry Cohen, had taken his pet to an unlicensed veterinarian in Hernando County, identified as Frankie Huertas Rivera. Cohen later told investigators that he believed Huertas Rivera to be a legitimate animal doctor, but he also claimed to have sought the man's services in an effort to save money. The owner agreed to pay $650 for Huertas Rivera to carry out an unauthorized C-section on his dog. The surgery, which was performed in the living room of Cohen's Claremont residence, was filmed by the homeowner's 15-year-old daughter. The clip, which was promptly removed from TikTok, appeared to show that the animal had not been properly sedated prior to the procedure. Upon realizing that the surgery had gone horribly wrong, Cohen brought the dog to a veterinary office in Davenport, where the animal and its 2 unborn puppies were reportedly dead on arrival. Both Cohen and Huertas Rivera were charged with aggravated animal cruelty and practicing veterinary medicine without a license. Number 6. Kelly Fulce. On the afternoon of December the 13th of 2017, Kelly Fulce fatally shot the American bulldog that lived next door to her while the animal's owner was at work. The shooting marked the culmination of several months in which 35-year-old Fulce had tried getting her neighbor to stop her pet's incessant barking in the backyard. Fulce reportedly worked as a veterinarian at Aberdeen Veterinary Hospital in Harahan, Louisiana. According to evidence that emerged from the consequent police investigation, the vet had sent her neighbor a series of text messages and videos about the 15-month-old dog's barking leading up to the incident. The owner was therefore fully aware of Fulce's issues with the animal. She arrived home on December the 13th and discovered that her dog, named Bruiser, had succumbed to a gunshot wound to the back of the head. The woman immediately suspected that the veterinarian was the one responsible for her beloved pet's death. On December the 19th, the owner's suspicions were proven to have been well placed, as Fulce was arrested at her home by Jefferson Parish Police. She was charged with aggravated cruelty to animals in connection to Bruiser's death, as well as unrelated drug charges stemming from unprescribed narcotics that had been found in her house. In the aftermath of her arrest, Fulce was fired from her position at Aberdeen Veterinary Hospital, which, coincidentally, was the same clinic Bruiser had been taken to following the shooting. Number 5. Hunter Cohen. An Alabama veterinarian caused a fatal 3-car crash in West Mobile on the evening of September the 11th of 2013. Court records named the crash's instigator as Hunter Cohen, a man reported to have been under the influence of prescription sleeping pills and anti-anxiety medication at the time. The authorities found that Cohen had initially hit a vehicle driven by a retired federal probation officer, John Lindell. The pileup that ensued also involved Jesse and Judith Kennedy, who'd been driving behind Lindell in the moments leading up to the crash. Although they sustained injuries, the Kennedys ultimately survived the incident. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for Lindell, who was killed instantly. Cohen was taken into custody by Alabama state troopers on April the 4th of 2014. He faced charges of murder and 2 counts of third-degree assault as a result of the deadly DUI crash. During the subsequent court proceedings, it emerged that the veterinarian had previously pleaded guilty to DUI on 2 other occasions and had served a 1-year probation sentence in connection to one of those cases. On April the 7th of 2017, Cohen was convicted on all counts. The jury assigned to his trial reportedly deliberated for just under 2 hours before making their final decision. He was sentenced to serve 18 years in the Alabama State Penitentiary for Lindell's murder and an additional 2 years as a consequence for the assault charges. Number 3. Todd Glover. A Texas veterinarian was accused of using drugs from his clinic to incapacitate and abuse 2 girls reported as being in their late teens at a Louisiana casino in December of 2018. The victims alerted local authorities and Texas Rangers subsequently raided the animal hospital of Santa Fe. It was there that the alleged perpetrator, Todd Glover, operated his veterinary practice. In documents pertaining to the civil lawsuit that resulted from the case, it was stated that Glover had given the 2 anonymous young women drinks that contained medication commonly used to tranquilize animals. The victims became unconscious after consuming the tainted beverages, and Glover allegedly proceeded to perform non-consensual acts on them. The vet was arrested the following month and, despite denying the allegations, was charged with the assault and battery described in the lawsuit. Glover faced further legal troubles in July of 2019 when he was indicted for allegedly engaging in organized criminal activity. The new charges stemmed from fraudulent prescriptions that the vet had used to secure various medications for his practice. The Texas Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners also noted that Glover had failed to keep proper records of the controlled substances being used in his office, which included ketamine, tramadol, and diazepam. Number 2. Andres Lopez Elores. In June of 2015, a Venezuelan veterinarian named Andres Lopez Elores was taken into custody by law enforcement officers in Spain. His arrest occurred roughly a decade after Colombian authorities had raided his clinic in the city of Medellin, where they reportedly found 10 dogs, 3 of which had been surgically implanted with heroin. As investigators eventually learned, they'd uncovered an illicit smuggling operation in which Elores had allegedly participated from September of 2004 until the raid of his property in January of 2005. In the aftermath, he became a fugitive. The veterinarian had conspired with a Colombian drug trafficking ring to import heroin into the United States with the use of canine drug mules. On behalf of the traffickers employing his veterinary expertise, Elores had stitched bags of liquid heroin inside of the animals, which were housed on a plot of farmland that he'd leased while attending school in Colombia. The dogs were subsequently placed on board commercial flights to the US, where upon their arrival, they underwent a second surgery to remove the packets of drugs from their bodies. Elores had eluded capture for 10 years before he was ultimately tracked down by Spanish police and extradited to New York City, where he stood trial. He faced a single charge of conspiracy to import a controlled substance into the United States, to which he pleaded guilty in September of 2018. According to a Justice Department press release, Elores was sentenced to 72 months in prison in February of 2019. Number 1. Wendy May Davidson. A former veterinarian from Texas fatally poisoned her husband with drugs destined for animal euthanasia in January of 2005. Following the murder, the vet, identified as Wendy May Davidson, dumped the man's body in a nearby pond. She reportedly stabbed him 41 times after he'd already passed away in order to keep his corpse from floating to the water's surface. Davidson had been married to 24-year-old Michael Severance, a U.S. Air Force enlistee, for roughly 4 months before she killed him, but the specific motives behind her crimes have remained unclear to investigators. In the years following the incident, Davidson had given birth to Severance's child only a few weeks before they were officially wed in September of 2004. They had planned a trip to visit Severance's relatives on the East Coast in January of the following year. On the day they were scheduled to arrive, however, Davidson called to notify the family that her husband had gone missing the previous morning. The San Angelo veterinarian would tell detectives that Severance had been drinking heavily prior to his disappearance, mentioning that he'd allegedly left behind his car and cell phone. Local police called on the Texas Rangers to aid in their investigation, which didn't generate any actionable leads in its early stages. When Severance failed to report to his commanding officers on the day he was due back at his military base, the Air Force's Office of Special Investigations stepped in to lend their assistance as well. They examined the couple's home and discovered internet searches made by Davidson concerning polygraph tests and the decomposition of a body in water. Investigators also established that the woman had been regularly visiting a pond on a friend's livestock ranch since her husband had gone missing. Davidson's brother told San Angelo police that she confessed to him and their parents that she'd carried out Severance's murder. At that point, detectives had gathered enough evidence to take the woman into custody. The following morning, the victim's body was found in the pond Davidson had been visiting. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison and was denied an early release in May of 2019. Thanks for watching. If a cop caught you speeding and told you he can either write you a ticket for $500 or you can pay him $50 cash and they'll forget the whole thing, what would you do?